Hello, beloved. Esther chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's command meant and his decree drew near to put in execution in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces of the kings of Ahasuerus to lay hands on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them. For the fear of them fell upon all people, and all the rulers of the province, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers, and the kings, and the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them, for Mordecai was great in the king's house. And his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all of their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughtered and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan, the place that the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men, and in Parshadatha, and in Dalphon, and in Saphatha, and in Paratha, and in Adalia, and in Aradatha, and in Parmashatha, and Arisari, and in Ardea, and in Azjezephah, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they. But on the spoil laid they not their hand. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan, the place, was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther, the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan, the palace, and 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or, what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according to this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And a decree was given to Shushan that they hung Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's province gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000. But they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of fasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled themselves together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same, and they rested and made it a day of fasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwell in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month of Adar a day of gladness and fasting, a day of good and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both high and far, to establish this amongst them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and the 15th day on the same year.